When you hear what happened in Odi, you think I'm exaggerating. I wish I was. A whole Nigerian town wiped out, not by a natural disaster, by soldiers. It started with 12 policemen who were found dead near the town. The government wanted answers. I mean, fair enough. But what came next, I don't think we can call that justice. It was more like punishment. The kind that makes you question if your own country even sees you as a human being. They said they were coming to restore peace. What they restored was silence. By the time the military left Odi, almost every house had been burnt to the ground. Only 3 buildings were still standing: a bank, a church, and a clinic. Everything else was gone. Families gone. History gone. And then the same government came out to say that only 43 people died. 43? In a town that no longer existed? So what really happened in Odi? And how did something so brutal happen just months after Nigeria returned to democracy? Let's get into the story. 1999, Nigeria had just left years of military dictatorship behind, and people were hopeful again. But in the Niger Delta, that hope did not mean much. The oil kept flowing, the money kept disappearing, communities producing it were left with pollution and poverty. And out of all of that came anger, and it formed movements and militancy. Young men were tired of begging for fairness. So in December of 1998, Ijaw youths, they had already made a bold statement, the Kayama Declaration. They said, "We own our land and we own our oil." The government saw it as rebellion. Police raids and crackdowns followed, and resentment grew. By late 1999, one particular gang led by a man named Ken Niwega, they had started terrorizing parts of Bayelsa state. Robberies, illegal checkpoints, gunfights. His boys were honestly out of control. All these elders, they saw it happening and they begged for help. On November 1st, 1999, they even wrote a letter to the Bayelsa state government. They said, please, the situation had become, in quotes, frightening, disturbing, and horrifying. They wanted these criminals gone, please. But before help arrived, things went from bad to catastrophic. On November 4th, 1999, a group of policemen went into Odi, 12 in total. They went to investigate the rising violence. They never came back. 7 were killed that day, 5 more in the following days. Their bodies were mutilated and dumped near the town. The whole country was shocked. President Olusegun Obasanjo, he reacted fast. On November 10th, he wrote a letter to Bayelsa's governor. He gave him 14 days to arrest the killers or face a state of emergency. Odi knew what was coming. Young men started running into the creeks, afraid that the army would come for revenge. Elders stayed behind, thinking the soldiers will come, maybe make a few arrests, and they will leave. They were wrong. The army didn't wait for the 14 days to expire. No. Around November 20th, truckloads of soldiers, they surrounded Odi. They came with armored vehicles, heavy guns, even mortars. As they approached, there was a short gunfight, like a short firefight outside the town. A few armed men tried to resist, but they were no match for the military. So within minutes, the gunfight stopped. And that gang, they fled. That should have been the end of it, but it wasn't. Once the soldiers entered Odi, everything changed. They moved street by street, setting fire to houses, shooting anybody that they saw. Witnesses said that even people that were waving white cloths, they were gunned down. Women, children, they ran into bushes. Some of them did not make it. Old people who couldn't run, they stayed inside their homes and they were burnt in there. By the second day, the whole town was in flames. Smoke covered the sky. The only place that was left totally untouched was the Anglican church. There were a handful of elderly people hiding in there. They were lucky. When journalists and lawmakers finally got access to Odi days later, what they found, it didn't look like an operation. It looked like erasure. The ground was covered in ashes and human remains. Even the Senate president at that time, Chuba Kadibo, he had visited after the attack. He said there was no need for speech. There was nobody to speak with. The government claimed that 43 people died, including 8 soldiers. But Human Rights Watch, they called that impossible. The investigators said, no, hundreds of unarmed civilians were killed, possibly more. A Nigerian group called the Environmental Rights Action, they later estimated 2,000 deaths. No matter what number you believe, Odi was gone, wiped out, and Abuja refused to call it a massacre. Obasanjo's media advisor, he even said that the operation was carefully planned and cautiously executed. But people who lived there told a different story. Even Goodluck Jonathan, who was then the deputy governor of Bayelsa State, he said when he went to Odi after the army had left, that the only bodies that he saw were of women, children, and old people, not a single militant. The government that ordered the invasion said it was restoring order. The ground in Odi said otherwise. It was burnt to a crisp. For years, nothing happened. No soldier was punished. No apology. The government moved on like Odi had never existed. Until 2013, when the Federal High Court finally gave a judgment, Justice Akambi called what happened in Odi a brazen violation of fundamental human rights and ordered the federal government to pay the town 37.6 billion naira in compensation. The judgment was very detailed. He said plainly that the soldiers went far beyond their orders, that the destruction was not crossfire, it was deliberate. The government appealed, but then they backed down. Under President Goodluck Jonathan, an out-of-court settlement was reached for 15 billion naira and it was paid in 2014. It should have been closure, right? It wasn't. The money caused fights, serious fights within the community, arguments over who should get what. Even the man in charge of sharing the funds, at one point he was kidnapped. Odi had been destroyed once by guns and again by greed and division. More than 20 years later, the scars are still there. The town has been rebuilt, but everybody who lives there remembers what happened. Every November, they hold memorials for the dead. No one from the government has ever said sorry. Odi became a warning, a reminder that even in a democracy, power can still burn a whole town and call it peace. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you like stories like this, please follow me. I tell these stories all the time on all my social media. And if my voice sounded a bit off today, it's because I've been sick. I'm trying my best. Thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you.